this is the second instalment of our Read with Mrs. B. I've got my notes again because there's quite a lot of information to go through, so I don't want to miss anything. Also, I said I'd do a special shout out to River in this instalment, so hi River, hope you're doing okay, and I hope you enjoy this second instalment. So last time I left you with some pretty deep questions about suffering. So do you remember we talked about the different types of suffering, including first world problems, and we spoke about the problems of daily survival in the third world. Today we are going to think about the idea of suffering from a Christian and a Buddhist point of view to see how each of those religions answer the question of suffering. And whilst we're doing this, I'd just like you to have a think, maybe write down some questions that you might have. It'd be really good to have some discussions when we're able to. So most of you will know the story of Adam and Eve from Genesis, the first book of the Bible. God created the earth and then he created Adam and Eve, and he gave them a perfect place to live with only one rule, which was not to eat the fruit from the tree of knowledge. The famous snake then rocked up and persuaded Adam and Eve to eat the fruit. They realised that they were naked. God sussed them out when he came to visit them that afternoon, and he chucked them out of the Garden of Eden. He punished them with things like having to work really hard to get food from the soil and women having pain in childbirth. So that's the Christian idea of where pain and suffering come from. So Christians believe that the snake represents the devil, who encourages us to make bad choices, which is called sin. And the story of Adam and Eve is also known as the original sin. So many Christians, like I just said, believe that this is where suffering comes from. But the topic and the idea of this sort of discussion gets a lot deeper when we start to look at free will. So I don't know if any of you know what free will means. Maybe just have a think. Free and will, put those two words together. What do you think it might mean? Pause the video, have a little think. Okay, any ideas then? What could free will be? Please feel free to shout them at YouTube. Excellent. So free will is being able to make choices. So those choices could be good or they could be bad. And we're going to look at that in a lot more detail in the next instalment. So the other thing that I said that we were going to talk about today is suffering from a Buddhist point of view. So Buddhists believe that suffering is explained in the Four Noble Truths, which are: suffering, pain and misery exist in life. Unfortunately, I think we probably all would agree with that one. Suffering comes from attachment to desires. So Buddhists believe that suffering is caused because we want things that maybe we haven't got, or because we've got things and we're worried about keeping them. Suffering stops when attachment to desire stops. So if we stop desiring things, if we stop wanting material things, then Buddhists believe that suffering will stop. Freedom from suffering is possible by practicing the Eightfold Path. So the Eightfold Path is a way of living a good life, which is suggested in Buddhism. And I've printed this out to show you because I'm not very technical. I wasn't sure any other way to do it. This is the Eightfold Path of Buddhism. So they believe that if you have a good life, then you have the right view, so the right way of seeing things, the right intention, so you're doing things for the right reasons, the right speech, so we're only saying things that are helpful to other people and that aren't going to hurt them, right action, so doing things for the right reasons, right livelihood, so a job that is respectful and worthwhile, right effort, so putting in the right amount of effort to things, right concentration, so focusing well on these things, and right mindfulness. So mindfulness we've done a little bit of in WOW as well. So thinking in the moment, are we doing things for the right reason? That sort of thing. So I've given you a lot of information and I'd like you to think about what you feel the reasons for suffering might be and how we might be able to avoid some of the suffering in our lives. So this is quite a good opportunity whilst we're at home, a lot of us, during school closures. It's a good opportunity to kind of reevaluate what's important. And I know from my own personal point of view that I've spent a lot more time just going out for walks locally with my family and spending more time with my family, which has been really nice. And The things I thought were important before, things like shopping, I haven't been in a shop for about 10 or 11 weeks, and I've actually been okay with that. So maybe reevaluating what's important. If there's something in your life that's causing you suffering, then can it go? Can you get rid of it? Should we follow the Eightfold Path of mindfulness? Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, and right concentration. Would that make our lives more simple, and therefore would that mean that there was less suffering? I personally think that these things would take away a lot of the first world suffering, but would it help with the deeper problems that we've got going on, such as wars and famine? Maybe if the whole world followed the Eightfold Path, then it might, but that's unlikely, isn't it? If Adam and Eve had not eaten the fruit from the tree of knowledge, would we not have suffering according to Christianity? So next time, we're going to look a little bit more into the Christian view of suffering and how Christians are able to believe in a kind and loving God that allows suffering to happen. Have a chat with someone at home about some of the things that I've talked about in this video. Let's turn my page, sorry, I don't want to miss anything. It's up to you how deep you want to go with your ideas. It's good to think about the big stuff. I know that maybe we don't do that enough, but it is good to think about these things and to think, could I live a better life? Could I cut some of the suffering out of my life? What could we do as a world? Could we write a letter to Boris Johnson? Could we write a letter to the Queen? Are there things that we could change to make us better people? Anyway, I got a bit deep there. Apologies for that, but hopefully it's got you thinking. Stay safe, keep smiling, and I will see you next time for RE with Mrs. B.